Hello, you're watching Socially Triggered, and today's topic is Franchesca Ramsey from MTV News. I like to watch a lot of these crazy videos, and hers sort of get me the most because she seems like a very intelligent woman, and she seems like she's trying to do good, and I really feel that she is trying to do something that's positive, but what the end effect of what she does is actually a disservice to black people. The thing is, this video is about cultural appropriation. The one that the screenshot here is from her video explaining why cultural appropriation is a bad thing. And if you're not familiar with cultural appropriation, well, cultural appropriation is the situation where one group, could be white people, use something which is associated with another group, for example, black people. In her video, she was mentioning white people wearing cornrows, or white people using what is typically associated with African American or black people's culture. And the problem with that is cornrows are actually not only associated with black culture. If you go to many other places, you can see that they're, wearing your hair in braids or wearing your hair in a tight style is actually very common. It's not cultural appropriation. But that was the example that she gave. And I'm actually not going to try to defend cultural appropriation as a concept in any particular way because I think it's silly. Culture, for the most part, is a mixture of many cultures from many different origins. We don't culturally appropriate things. Cultures mix. We meet other groups of people on this planet, and when we meet other groups of people, we incorporate things that we learn from them. For example, noodles come from China, but we think of pasta as coming from Italy. Were the Italians culturally appropriating Chinese noodles? No. It's just an exchange of culture, and each culture adds their own take to it. The Italians added the sauces and the different things to make it their own take of something that they learned, some technology, which was the noodles. It's not cultural appropriation, it's the exchange of ideas. And actually that's the biggest thing I have against the whole concept of cultural appropriation, because it's very against the exchange of ideas. And the fact that people, when they exchange ideas, they're actually embracing culture more than they are appropriating it. So I basically want to say that she's doing a disservice to black people. And there's real reasons for why the whole concept of cultural appropriation is a disservice to black people. And the reason for this is, first of all, it trivializes the real issues. There's lots of problems within the black community and within the black community's acceptance within the greater community of the United States. And cultural appropriation is the least of those concerns. There's high crime rates within the black community. There's high poverty rates. If this is the biggest concern that if this is like something that you think is a really serious topic, it pales in comparison to those truly serious topics of high crime rates, low education levels, poverty. These are really real issues that should be addressed. But yet, she takes her platform, which she actually has a fairly big platform, to talk about cultural appropriation, which only trivializes the real issues. So when you focus on something that's not really important and make it sound like it's super important, that only hurts the people that you're trying to help. Now, one of the things that I always found when people try to make something an issue, whether it's cultural appropriation or any kind of thing, they basically try to shine light on something that people, for the most part, never had a problem with. The concept of actual cultural appropriation was only a recent invention. Maybe people were taking in cultures from other places for thousands of years, but the concept of it being a violation or some kind of negative act was only really developed by, they say that the origin is from Greg Tate, and he came up with the idea in his book around 2003. So that's like 13 years ago. Now we have like the whole history of mankind, and we're talking 13 years ago that this whole concept came about. Is it really a major thing? Probably not. But what really works against the idea of cultural appropriation, for me, is the lack of exchange of ideas. And that's where it really hurts the black community the most. Because if cultural appropriation is a thing, and white people or other people are taking in parts of black culture and incorporating it into their own culture, if anything, that makes them more aware of what it is to be black or what it is to be of the black culture. And as we accept more things from the black culture, then we're more accepting of the black culture. It just seems very logical. So cultural exchange, I prefer that over cultural appropriation. Cultural exchange is actually a good thing because it teaches people about other people. But when you create these things called cultural appropriation, you're basically casting one group as a victim and casting the other group as an oppressor. And that's the common narrative in a lot of these social justice warriors causes, where they basically try to point the fingers at white people, oh, you're oppressing us, and black people, oh, you're so defenseless and imposed upon and oppressed, and we have to take care of you. This is the worst kind of narrative to create. So what I would like to say is that culture is something that can't be appropriated. It may exist in different groups. They may have their own unique cultures, but culture is something we share. And when we share, we learn from each other. And we can only get better from it as a society in general. The more we learn about each other, the more we understand each other, and the more we become wiser and greater in terms of our understanding of life. What culture appropriation does, by creating that concept, not only do you create this one group who is the oppressed, and then another group that's the oppressor, but what you're really doing is segregating people. You're taking and saying, well, we got to protect our culture and that nobody can touch it and nobody can use it, and you segregate those people and you insulate those people so that they cannot exchange ideas with other groups. Does that benefit them? Probably not. It's the exchange of ideas that leads to peace. It leads to, like, the reason people fight wars is we're trying to steal technology. Well, or land or something. But when we fairly exchange things, then actually there's more peace between groups and more understanding, and things actually go better for mankind. The other problem with cultural appropriation is that it can go two ways. One way is that you say, well, okay, wearing black hairstyles, if you're non-black, is cultural appropriation. And then you're basically criminalizing. They're all evil for doing that. But the way she phrases it is that if black people culturally appropriate white culture, which would be many things like the internet, cars, computers, all these things that white people have basically developed and created, then are they culturally appropriating that? And she would say no, because again, they always try to like equate something where they make it something where white people are always the criminal ones and the black people and the minorities are always the victims. And they say that if white people do it, then they're culturally appropriating. If anyone else does it, it's called assimilation, that they're just trying to fit into the culture that the white people created. Well, that kind of makes it a little bit double standard. Anytime you have a double standard, that's not a good thing, because it sets two sets of rules. Two sets of rules means that it means that racism, whether it's white against black or black against white, can only be one way. It can only be blacks. When it's white towards black, then it's racism. If it's black towards whites, then it's just that they're being oppressed and that they should be forgiven because they're being oppressed and they're just rising up against their oppressors, which is craziness. Racism is racism. Cultural appropriation does not exist. All these things are silly. I'd love to hear people's feedback about my ideas on this. I find it hard to express all the things that I want to say about it because there's just so much stupidity involved. And I really want to get discussion going, make people aware of the stupidity that is existing in our society, that we come up with these crazy terms that limit people's ability to integrate with each other, to exchange ideas. Words like cultural appropriation, that's what they do. They limit the conversation instead of encouraging the conversation. And that's what we really need to do. If we want to make the world a better place, we have to start talking about it and figuring out what the heck the problems are and talking about them and figuring out what the best solutions are to those problems. So Franchesca Ramsey, you failed on this one. You really, you're doing a disservice because you're basically preventing that discussion from happening. And if that discussion never happens, then the world's it's not going to be a better place. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have any comments, I'm going to try to make my videos better as I get used to this format of trying to talk the ideas out. Please, comment below, give me some feedback. I need help creating these videos and getting my ideas sorted out because I'm still new at this and I want to get better at it. So this is my second video and I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you like, subscribe and all that wonderful stuff and give me your feedback because that's really what I'm looking for. Thank you.